What's going on, everyone? So, time and time again, the name surface. Bondi Beach, Orlando, Paris, London, Boston, different continents, different ideologies, but one chilling constant. The attackers were already known, flagged, investigated, watched, and yet still somehow they were able to strike. So, tonight we're going to peel back the layers of secrecy, missteps, and systemic cracks, and we ask, is this failure or activation? Are we witnessing lone wolves really, or cells in the shadows who are receiving their activation signal? We're going to start again at Bondi Beach in Australia at what was supposed to be a celebration of Hanukkah, but instead we got these two attackers, a father-son duo, Sajid Akram and his son Naveed. But here's the twist. Naveed Akram, he wasn't invisible. He wasn't unknown. Back in 2019, Australia's domestic intelligence agency, ASIO, had already examined him for ties to a Sydney-based Islamic State cell. He was on the radar. He was flagged, and yet 6 years later, he's able to open fire on innocent families that are just out celebrating a holiday. So investigators now scramble to piece together the puzzle. Was his radicalization fueled by local extremist networks, or was it online propaganda? Maybe he was using some sort of encrypted apps or hidden forums, or was it overseas influence? Contacts abroad, diaspora connections, whispers from conflict zones like Syria and Iraq. Now, Australia has dismantled extremist groups before, but remnants persist underground. Online propaganda bypasses traditional vetting systems, and overseas influence lingers long after travel bans and biometric checks. So, the Akram case isn't just a tragedy. It's really a mirror, a reflection of systemic gaps where individuals already flagged still find ways to unleash chaos. And Bondi Beach is not alone. Let's rewind for a minute. Orlando, Florida, 2016, you had the Pulse nightclub shooting. Omar Mateen killed 49 people in one of the deadliest mass shootings in the United States. The FBI had investigated him twice for suspected extremist ties, twice. Yet, he was not under active surveillance when he struck. Then, short time after that, you had Boston 2013, the marathon bombing. You had Tamerlan Taznarvov, he'd been flagged by both Russian intelligence and the FBI, and then follow-up monitoring was limited. The result? 3 dead, hundreds injured, and a city brought to its knees. But we're not alone with that, because Europe tells the same story. We had the 2015 Paris attacks. Abhamad Aboud, the mastermind of the coordinated attacks, was on European watch lists. He had to travel to Syria. He was known, but still he orchestrated one of the deadliest terror attacks in modern French history. And then London, 2017, you had the London Bridge attack. That guy was Karam Brut, and he was not a ghost. He was known to MI5. He had even appeared in a documentary about extremism. Yet, he and his accomplices still carried out a brutal assault. So, different nations, different agencies, same story. Known suspects later dropped. Watch lists that don't watch. Investigations that just fade, and then activation. So, fast forward to the United States. We just have, as of yesterday, today, California. Federal authorities just disrupted a credible terror plot days before New Year's Eve. 4 suspects arrested while preparing to test improvised explosive devices. A 5th suspect caught in New Orleans. The group, a radical offshoot of the Turtle Island Liberation Front. Their ideology, a volatile blend of pro-Palestinian activism and anti-law enforcement range and anti-government extremism. Their plan was to do coordinated bombings at 5 separate locations across Los Angeles on New Year's Eve. Kind of funny how I just said, imagine had an attack like that happen in 5 different locations on the last video. The FBI described this plot as imminent. The suspects were already preparing to test explosives just days before the attacks. So IEDs remain a favorite tool for extremist groups. They're easy to assemble from accessible materials, and they are devastating in crowded public spaces. And holidays like New Year's Eve and Christmas, we know these are high-risk targets. We've been talking about that regularly. Any sort of large gatherings where you can get mass casualties and maximum media impact. To have these small groups scattered across the map, different causes, different grievances, but when viewed together, they look less like just these little isolated sparks and a lot more like a grid of sleeper cells that are starting to light up in sequence. Now, here's the really uncomfortable truth. Agencies maintain separate lists. You got like the FBI's no-fly list, and then Europe's Schengen alerts, and then Australia's national security database. But definitions differ, overlap is inconsistent, and some suspects are investigated and then dropped from monitoring. Technically, they're known, but they're not actively tracked. And resource-wise, yeah, it's limited. Intelligence agencies cannot monitor every flagged individual continuously. The result is that we have this illusion of safety, a name on a list, a file on a database. But when the system is stretched thin, the list just becomes a graveyard of forgotten warnings. Now, here's the question that should really, chill you to your spine. Are these attacks just simply the result of mishaps or human error or bureaucratic overload or resources being limited? Or are they being deliberately missed? Because we're not talking about fragile states or third world countries with some sort of limited infrastructure. These attacks are happening in the nations with some of the most advanced intelligence systems on Earth. We're talking the FBI, MI5, ASIO, agencies with billions in funding, cutting-edge surveillance, and really a global reach. And yet, time and time again, these attackers somehow managed to slip through. Think about it. Omar Mateen, he was investigated twice. And then Tazranov, he was flagged by both US and Russian intelligence. And then Abadad was on the European watch list. And then Naveed Akram was examined by ASIO years before Bondi Beach. These were by no means ghosts. They weren't invisible. They were absolutely known. So why weren't they stopped? Some will argue that it's just a matter of the scale of the whole situation. There's tens of thousands of individuals that are flagged. It's impossible to monitor all at once. Sometimes you get watch lists that grow faster than resources can keep up. But there's the whisper of the darker possibility that certain names are allowed to fade, that certain files are just quietly shelved, that some individuals are deliberately ignored until their activation serves a purpose. Now, as far as the purpose goes, is it chaos, fear, justification for expanding surveillance powers, the new excuse for new laws, new budgets, or even new wars? Because when attacks happen in countries with the most advanced intelligence systems in the world, the question isn't really how did they miss it? The question becomes, did they want to? Known, flagged, forgotten, or ignored. If the majority of attackers were already on watch lists, then the real question isn't how did they slip through? The real question is who's turning the key? Because when the dots connect, when all the headlines align, when the patterns repeat, it's hard to call it coincidence. It looks like a system of cells in the shadows, just waiting and watching. And again, we know that they're known, they're flagged, and then they're forgotten, and then they're activated. So guys, there's been a ton going on in the last 2 days. Let me know your thoughts on all of this below. Is the whole conspiracy side of this just way far out there and know this couldn't be possible? Or if you are starting to see things kind of the way that I am, where it's like, man, this can't just be coincidence that all these guys are constantly finding a way to be initially investigated and then just be let go. So let me know your thoughts on this. And with that, we'll see you on the next one. Be safe.